Hello and welcome to the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name's Nathaniel and I'm joined once again by my good friend Matt. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. For one of the last times in 2025 we're going to be doing this, I think. So it's busy week. Lots of hockey to cover. Kind of feeling rested and recovered after the festive break, and ready to get into it. How are you? All good?
Yeah, no, I'm good. It feels like an age since we've done one of these podcasts recapping some hockey, and also over the busy Christmas period, it's hard to keep up with some of the games that are being played. Obviously, on review ahead of this podcast, I've fully caught up and I watched last night's games, and there are some cracking storylines and some cracking things to talk about. So yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, last one of 2025 probably, but the season goes deep into 2026, so we're not going anywhere.
Hell yeah! Right, let's dive right in, shall we? Lots of games to cover.
Yeah. So we're covering 2 weeks worth of games. Obviously, there's a bit of a break in between, so a few less than normal. But we're going to start off again in the Central Division. It is the division of the teams we both support, so maybe a bit of bias as to why we cover them first. But it also means we cover the best team in hockey, which is still the Colorado Avalanche. First in the division, first in our power rankings, first in the league, 63 points. Yep. Another great couple of weeks for Colorado Avalanche. They played 5 games, and yes, they've won every single one of them. Though they did have to go to a shootout to beat the Golden Knights on the 27th there. But yeah, great week by Colorado yet again.
Yeah, I can't believe that we're near the end of 2025 and they've got 2 regulation losses all season. They're on a plus 63 goal differential. They're on 63 points. MacKinnon's got another 9 points across those 5 games, 6 points for Natchez. Yeah, just win after win after win. Some really comfortable ones in there. Obviously, beat the Wild on the road 5-1. Beat the Kraken 5-3. Quite a tight one against the Golden Knights. Obviously, taking that one in the shootout, and then a really sort of professional 1-0 win, shutout victory over the Utah Mammoth as well. So pretty much just business as usual.
Yeah, it's starting. I'm not on the same bandwagon as we touched on in the past of those fans who are saying that this is boring for the league, etc. Because it's just exciting, like just great hockey played how it should be played.
Oh yeah,
But that does leave it in a bit where there's not really much to talk about them. Like they're just a great team. I feel like Colorado's season's going to become important when it reaches the playoffs, because there's no way they're not getting there now. So it's just a case of staying healthy and keeping on going, and it'll actually matter more when there's a series on the line.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'm just kind of hoping that they don't find themselves going into cruise control, in the second half of the season and end up sort of falling away a little bit in the playoffs. I feel like they just need to keep that intensity up, and yeah, they'll be right up there. Just interesting to see that I know plus minus is a take what you will from it as far as that stat goes, but 6 of the top 8 players with a plus minus in the league are all Colorado Avalanche players. So that just further highlights how absolutely dominant they've been this year. But yeah, like you said, there isn't kind of too much to touch on them really, other than the fact that it's another week where they're just being absolutely off the chain.
Yeah. Not only with that plus minus, I think the top 4 players on their team have a better plus minus than the second best plus minus team in the league.
Like you do.
Pretty much, like you do. They've got home games against the Kings and the Blues coming up before travelling away to the Hurricanes and to the Panthers. So take that as you will. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another 4 wins on the board there, but we'll see if something interesting happens.
Yeah. No, I'm ready for it, but I think it could just be business as usual.
Yeah. So we move on then to the second team in this division, keeping up somewhat of a pace. They're only 6 points behind the Dallas Stars, second in the division, second in the league, and second in our power rankings. They've also played 5 games this week, and they've won 3 and then lost 2, one in overtime and one in a shootout. They started off finishing off their away trip in California. They beat the Sharks 5-3, beat the Ducks 8-3, before then returning home and playing the Maple Leafs, beating them 5-1. And then, like I say, they lost 4-3 in overtime to the Red Wings, and then in a shootout to your Blackhawks.
Get in.
So, yeah, it ran 10 points, but yeah, they're smashing it. 8 points in 10 games.
Yeah. Again, another really dominant sort of couple of weeks from the Stars, just being again just such a shame that that Colorado are waxing the whole division. Otherwise, I feel like more people would be talking about the Dallas Stars. But yeah, no, they've been terrific. They have a game on New Year's Eve against the Sabres at home before traveling back to Chicago to play them again on New Year's Day, and then they return home to face the Montreal Canadiens. So yeah, some more points on offer for sure for the Dallas Stars. You know, Mikko Rantanen's got 54 points in 38 games on the season. Jason Robertson, 45 in 39. Wyatt Johnston, 45 in 39. You know, so they've got some really, really good, really good pieces there. And I'm really happy to see Rantanen doing so well in Dallas, because it was a struggle for him during his brief stint in Carolina, but he seems to have really found a home there.
Yeah, he does, and he gets to be his own MacKinnon essentially on that team now, which is probably what he wanted in the first place. But in the same division, like going up head to head, it's a great storyline that.
Yeah, big time.
But yeah,
big time.
Yeah, not much more for me to say about Dallas. I think they're a team like Colorado are trucking on well. I'm happy to move on to the third place team if you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move into it. Let's move into your Minnesota Wild, shall we?
Oh, absolutely. Third place, still in the division, 17th in our power rankings. We might have to adjust that soon. But they're sat prettily on 52 points, record of 23, 10 and 6 on a plus 19. They played 6 games over this holiday period. 4 wins, 1 loss in overtime, and 1 loss in regulation. But yeah, what do you think about the Minnesota Wild? I'll let you lead off on what you think about them.
Well, look, you know, they're sat in third place in this division, and they've got a 13-point gap between them and the team in fourth. So, you know, these top 3 teams in the Central are looking pretty locked in playoff wise. So, yeah, but look, you know, 6 games, 6 assists for Quinn Hughes. You know, what a difference he's making to that team, and Tarasenko with 4 goals and 2 assists as well. He's having, I think, certainly a better season than I expected. I was kind of thinking at this stage in his career, maybe he's going to kind of just be like a bottom 6 guy, but he's still finding that productivity. Matt Boldy, you know, terrific. 6 goals, 2 assists. I love Matt Boldy. And then Kaprizov kind of doing what he does, and he got 9 points in those 6 games. So, you know, we are seeing what a fully fit, no kind of time missed Kirill Kaprizov is capable of doing. So for your sake, I hope he stays healthy, and I hope that we're able to kind of see if he's he's living up to that contract.
Yeah. I think he is. I mean, what strikes me with this Wild team was we were dealing with some injuries up until the Avalanche game, and that's sort of the first game where we're getting our decor back, we're getting some players back, etc. And that's when we started to have a bit of struggles. Obviously, we lost against the Avalanche 5-1, lost to the Predators in overtime. It happens, and obviously we beat the Jets in overtime. So a bit of a twist there, but yeah, Tarasenko actually scoring some goals is great. We've got an all-Russian third line now, which is definitely interesting. But no, it's definitely great. Like, we were playing well last year, and we had the Kaprizov injury, and we were struggling, and we ended up in the wild card spot. Whereas this year, it seems like we're pushing forward, and we're sort of cementing that third place, with obviously Winnipeg dropping off a bit. Obviously, Gustafsson getting a shutout as well, beating the Capitals 5-0 in that first game. That was great. But obviously, Wallstead, the Wall of St. Paul, again going strong. Gustafsson, again strong. It's hard to find a defined weakness in this team other than maybe pedigree to pull off in the big moments, which hopefully we're going to get the opportunity to do so this year.
Well, yeah, that's it, and yeah, you've got 7 shutouts this season across across the two goalies, and I think the main thing is just going to be keeping everyone healthy, trying to keep as fewer injuries as possible, and you've added that big game player in Quinn Hughes now, and I'm really excited to see what Minnesota can do sort of come postseason, which I think I'm getting pretty comfortable in saying I'm pretty sure they're going to be there.
Yeah. There have been talks about that we need a new, like, a centre essentially after trading away Rossi. So we're playing Hartman on the first line, and we've got Sturm, Eriksson Ek as well. So there's been several names floated around for trading for them. I personally don't want to trade for any of these guys because we'll end up losing a D-man. I think our defense, the top six, is just stacked, and I think that's going to be so key going into the playoffs. I think I'd rather keep that there. But we've got to continuing our away trip. We finished at the Jets away, but we've got 4 more away games coming up against the Golden Knights, Sharks, Ducks, and Kings. So the West Coast travel. Fingers crossed we can keep our momentum up. Really.
Yeah, big time, big time. I'm pretty sure they will. So yeah, I'm feeling good about Minnesota right now.
Right, move on to the 18th team in our power rankings. Fourth spot, remaining in fourth spot, is the Utah Mammoth. Obviously, we dropped from, as you alluded to, from 52 points to 39 points, a 13 points difference. They played 5 games in the past few weeks, sort of split it down the middle, really. They've lost 3 and won 2, one in overtime. But what are your thoughts on Utah Mammoth?
Um, yeah, like they're there. They're there in fourth place. They're doing fine. I think unfortunately, I think for the rest of the Central Division, we may need to rethink potentially the most exciting division in hockey, just because I think those top 3 spaces are going to be more or less set, and it's going to be kind of be a bit of a jostle for the wild card spots. But yeah, they've had a very sort of excuse me, up and down week. With some losses, some wins. Didn't have any players at a point per game, but Clayton Keller got a couple of goals, couple of assists. Sean Dursey with 4 assists as well. And that they get, they've had some reasonable goaltending throughout, some good performances, some not as good performances. So they've just kind of been right there around the middle. But they've got the Predators coming up at home, and then they go to the Islanders on New Year's Day, and the Devils on the 3rd of Jan as well. So I think definitely some wins are available for them. I think for sure. I think those games against the Predators and the Devils, for sure would be great. And I think for Utah, it's just, can they try and cut themselves away to be kind of the best of the rest and try and get into those wildcard spots?
Yeah, they're a good but not great team. They have their good days, they have their bad days, and they're just kind of meh. They don't have the premier scorers, I think, as top 3 2 teams in this division have. But yeah, it's pretty much everything that you've said, really. It's kind of just want to see some separation to get into wildcard spots. Do I particularly care or excited about watching these teams play? Probably not. They've had the biggest gap, notably, over the break. They last played on the 23rd of December before they came back on the 29th tonight. So they've had a big long rest. Maybe they can come back fit and firing.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, yeah, look, this Utah team is going to be really, really exciting in sort of a year or two. Love Keller, Gunther, Paterka. They've got some really, really exciting young pieces there. They've got the experience with the likes of Schmaltz. Loved when they made the addition of Sergachev. I think that was a great trade when they made that a couple of years ago. And yeah, I think they're moving into their final form in the next sort of year or two, and yeah, it'd be good to see if they can start making some playoff pushes.
Yeah. Now, surprise, surprise, up 2 spots to fifth in this division is the 29th power ranked St. Louis Blues. And then you look at the results from this week and you think, well, how have they jumped up so far so fast? And then when we talk about the teams below them, you'll kind of see why. But yeah, they're fifth in this division on 38 points, up 2 spots, 15, 16, and 8 record with a minus 35 plus minus. Oh dear. But yeah, it seems like they've got to grips with the fact that Binnison isn't their best goalkeeper anymore.
Yeah, seemingly. Could have told you that 3 years ago. But yeah, they're rolling with Hoffa. And he got that shutout victory against the Jets, and they did have a really good win against the Panthers, didn't they? On the road, 6-2 victory, which was a really good performance. They've got that win against the Predators, and the games they've lost. I mean, they lost to the Lightning. I mean, we know the Lightning are a good team at this point, and that OT loss against the Rangers as well. Like again, I think the Rangers have had a lot of games go to overtime this year, so that they're kind of been well experienced in that. But Rob Thomas is kind of like leading the charge on that team. He got 2 goals and 4 assists across those 5 games. He's on 29 points in 35 for the season, which kind of just sort of epitomizes this St. Louis team. They are short of a premium scorer. And I think they're kind of sliding into that kind of mid-purgatory, where I'm not really sure what the direction's going to be for them. But they've got the Sabres coming up, and then they go on the road to the Avalanche, then they return home to face the Golden Knights and the Habs. So there are some tricky games in there for them, but we'll just have to see if they're able to pull out those results like they did on the road against Florida. But yeah, I think they're pretty much kind of are what they are at this point. Them and kind of the next team below, I think, as well, are very much sort of in that realm.
Yeah, what's weird for the Blues is that Kyrou isn't in the top 5 scorers on this team at the moment, and as we talked about before about whether he should get traded or not, and while they were stuck at the bottom of this division, you can sort of see it happening with this recent stretch, and you can never predict what's going to happen in the NHL, but they could be in scope to push towards a playoff place. Are they want to be trading what should be one of their star players? But it's clear that he's not really cutting it out at the minute. He can't get into the top 5 of the team, and when 4th and 5th in their team is Jit Neighbours and Dylan Holloway with 17 points. So Kyrou not performing is a big concern for me.
Yeah, I think so. I think he is someone who we know the ability that he does have, and I'm not, but in any way, shape, or form saying that he's a bad player. I've said many times on this podcast, I think he's a terrific player. I think he just needs a change of scenery. I think he just needs to go somewhere else and settle sort of long term somewhere where he's going to have a solidified top 6 role, in a way that. In a way that suits his style of play. I've said before as well, I do find that Kyrou is often kind of the scapegoat in this team, and I think he just needs to go somewhere where he's a little bit more appreciated.
Yeah, agree. Right. So the 6th team in this division, up 1 spot, is the Nashville Predators. Yeah, the 2 teams that were buried at the bottom of this division are now 5th and 6th. Nashville's on 36 points, record of 16, 17 and 4. Not bad for our 30th power ranked team. Sat on a minus 19. Another team that have played 5 games this week. Won 3 and lost 2. So what do you think about the Predators week?
Yeah, I mean they're having a week that we've seen kind of from a few teams already. Sort of a 3-2 split, sort of one way or the other. But yeah, some good wins in there. Beat the Maple Leafs, beat the Rangers, obviously beat the Wild in overtime, which I'm sure would have been a frustrating one for yourself. But yeah, Steven Stamkos kind of seemingly finding his feet a bit more this season. 3 goals and 3 assists across those games. Obviously, he had he had a good goal scoring week the week prior as well. So he's up to 15 goals for the season, 22 points in 37 games, which I know you would have expected more from Steven Stamkos, but he did really struggle at the start of the year. So similarly to St. Louis, I just think this Nashville team kind of are what they are. They've got a couple of young pieces kind of on the way. I've really liked Luke Evangelista's game this year. I think he's been a real nice breath of fresh air. They've got Brady Martin probably coming in next year. I know he's obviously not playing in the NHL this year, but I think this team will get better, but they just need to make that decision as to what they're going to do with this older veteran core, because they've got some pieces there that they could look to move. And if they did want to sort of commit to the rebuild, and they could sort of get a pretty decent return, I think, for some of those guys. You look at O'Reilly, you look at Stamkos, Forsberg, Brady Shea, maybe. So there's certainly the scope for them to do that, I think.
They've been playing in the middle of quite a large away stand at the moment. Obviously, they play Minnesota in St. Paul. Went up against the St. Louis Blues in St. Louis, and now they travel to face the Utah Mammoth, the Vegas Golden Knights, Seattle Kraken, and the Calgary Flames, all on the road. I'm still of the opinion I don't think they've got enough quality to make a push for the postseason this year, and that puts them in a bit of purgatory as to what direction they're going to go in, as you've said. I think you've explained it eloquently enough for me. I think they need some help in the goalkeeper room if they're going to make a push. UC Saros is just about cutting it, obviously on a struggling team, but Anunen is not cutting the mustard for me. He's not a great keeper.
No, not at all.
NHL level.
Not at all. No, 2 wins in 11 starts this year. He's on an .871 save percentage, which is pretty rough, and then 3.43 goals against average as well, which again is just is quite a tough. There's such a difficulty when you've got a backup who a team doesn't necessarily trust. It completely changes the way that a team plays. And it makes it really, really difficult, to play the game that you want to play, because, with Saros, that you're going to get a goalie who can bail you out of a tricky situation. And when you know that backup goalie is not going to do that, it's going to make you more apprehensive. It's going to make you more kind of hesitant, because you're not wanting to make those riskier plays, because you don't know what's going to happen coming the other way, and he's probably not going to make the big save when it counts. So yeah, I think if they want to go anywhere, they're going to have to try and get themselves a better backup. But I just don't think. I think looking at the bigger picture with this Nashville team, I just don't think they need to start chucking things away to try and make playoff pushes, when I just don't think it's on the cards for them, especially not this year.
No. We'll move on to the 7th team in this division, down 2 spots, and what could be the most disappointing team of the year so far. They're 4th in our power rankings, but they're way down on 34 points, and that's the Winnipeg Jets. They played 4 games in the past couple of weeks, and they've lost every single one. Lost 1-0 to the Blues, 3-2 to the Avalanche, then in overtime against the Mammoth and the Wild. So all division games, all losses, all by 1 goal, but still they can't get a win to save their life at the minute.
No, seemingly not. Like I said, 4 games against interdivisional opponents, and to come away with losses in all of those is really tough, and obviously that reflects in the way they've sort of slid down the rankings. But like you said, they were in all of those games. 1-0 loss to the Blues, 3-2 against the Avalanche, and then in overtime against the Mammoth and the Wild, lost both games 4-3. So they have been sort of right in there, and Scheifele's still producing, Kyle Connor's still producing, and they're just not getting those. They're just not getting those little bits extra to push them over the line. I mean, 17 regulation losses on the season. If they could have taken 5 of those to overtime, regardless then of the outcome, that would put them on 39 points. That would put them kind of 4th in this division. And that then we're talking about a very different Winnipeg Jets team. But the President's Trophy winners last year, they say it's cursed, but my God, it's turning into a really, really disappointing season. Even with a couple of guys on, Connor and Scheifele both on 45 points for the season. In 36 games, they're having really, really good performative years, but just really struggling to get over the line. I think obviously Hellebuck's back now, but that period that he was gone made a massive difference, and I think it's just kind of knocked the wind out of this team entirely.
That's what I think as well. Hellebuck's come back, and now they're playing games closer, but it's not enough to put them over the line. And it comes down to the fact that their depth just aren't performing as they were last year. Again, it's kind of like what I touched on about the past with the Washington Capitals in terms of they had a great year last year. Nobody really expected it. Now we expected them to fall back towards the mean. Now the Winnipeg have sort of stretched out that success a bit longer. But is this sort of a coming back to the mean kind of year where they're losing a few more games than they should? But you look at their points totals, you've got Scheifele and Connor 45 points both in 36 games, so more than a point per game, which is great. Velarde on 33, pretty much point per game. Morrissey just under a point per game. And then there's a massive drop off to Niederreiter, 15 points in 36 games. Just plus minuses, again, the top players are getting a decent end of the plus minus, which suggests to me that the second, third, fourth lines aren't scoring and they're conceding too many, and that's what's costing them these games.
Completely agreed. Just the depth hasn't been there this year.
No. They play another game at home against the Edmonton Oilers before a 3-game away trip to Red Wings, Maple Leafs, and the Senators. But there's still opportunity, there's still time for this team to turn it around and go on a run and make the playoffs, probably through a wild card spot, and there's nothing to say that they can't make a deep run in the playoffs either, if it all comes back together to them. But at the moment, as it stands, they're on a skid, and they need to turn it around if they want to push. They can't just rely on past performances this year.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, with the trade deadline obviously coming up, and you obviously got the Olympics going, I could see Winnipeg being a team who end up being kind of somewhat active to try and think, we need a bit of help. They're not completely out of it, but they need to maybe add a couple of pieces just to try and get them over the line. I mean, they've got just over $4 million in cap space. So, there is definitely some room for a bit of manoeuvring there. They can make that work. They can get a couple of things added, and hopefully kind of try and drive them forward. But kind of hope they do. It would be a shame to see Winnipeg kind of fall down, this year, which would be a real shame.
Yeah. We'll move into the bottom team in this division. 13th in our power rankings, down 2 spots on 34 points. Your Chicago Blackhawks. This is going to be a painful conversation, no doubt, for you, Matt, but I have to lead off by saying they played 6 games over this period and lost 5 of them, and I dare say pretty comfortably lost 5 those 5 games. Did manage to beat Dallas Stars in a shootout, though.
Yeah, I mean, that is the kind of one ray of light on an otherwise dismal couple of weeks, and even that loss to the Maple Leafs, they were 2-0 up midway into the third period and conceded 3 in the last 10 minutes to lose the game. I mean, the frustrating thing about this is that, obviously they're missing Bedard, they're missing Frank Nazar. Hopefully we should be due some sort of update on Connor Bedard in the new year, see how kind of far he is off of returning. Obviously had that separated shoulder injury. Nazar with, I think, what has led to have been understood as a broken jaw. But this team was riding so well at the start of the season, and it was exciting. Everything was clicking into place, and maybe they weren't going to make a push for the playoffs or anything like that, but you could see everything coming together. And then to lose your arguably 2 best defensive players, with Bedard facing that injury with 0.4 seconds left on the clock, and he ends up with a separated shoulder. Nazar takes complete fluke, like puck off the jaw. You just can't legislate for those sorts of things, and it has just completely derailed the Blackhawks' season. And this is tying nicely, actually, into we're going to tie this in with Cheeks of the Week, because the Cheeks of the Week are the Chicago Blackhawks, for the reason of there's some veteran players on this team who just need to step up. You've got the likes of Jason Dickinson there. You've got Teuvo Teravainen, who's a cup winner, been in a lot of big games with with Carolina, and you've got Connor Murphy there. You've got Andrei Burakovsky, who's won cups. You've got, Ilya Mikheyev, who I know has missed a couple of games recently, but is another guy who's been around the league a fair amount of time. And you're not seeing any sort of get up and go from these veteran players. The only one who's probably maybe an exception to that is Tyler Bertuzzi. He's grinding, getting in front of the goal, still managing to pot a few goals in, but they're just like, you can't just rely on all these sort of young kids to try and drag you over the line, because that's not going to happen. It's the times where you lose your biggest players is a time where you look towards the veterans to say, let's try and, get us out of this situation. They're just not stepping up. I mean, that they were 4-0 down to the Penguins yesterday in the first period. It was a completely dire showing. It's just they've just been awful, awful to watch. And the only guys who have really been sort of stepping up have been the younger players. Ryan Green, Oliver Moore, Nick Lardis getting the shootout winner against the Dallas Stars. Kind of ranted a little bit there, but it's just a frustrating time off of things that really just feels like it could happen to anyone.
Yeah, and sometimes talking therapy is what somebody needs when they're going through a rough time.
Yeah, I needed that.
I think this team is sort of unraveling a bit, and I know you didn't need this to show anybody how good a player Connor Bedard is. But we had a conversation a few weeks ago about MVPs and things like that, and how Bedard is the MVP of this team for sure. The way this team's sort of collapsing when he's not playing. They used to be in games a lot. Even when they were losing, they were in them. And now it just feels like that fragility is there, that even if you do take a lead going in, that it's never safe. This team that's been letting down their fans for the past few years is letting them down again. Even the shining light, sort of Spencer Knight, he's starting to wobble a little bit. I know in that Penguins game last night, he obviously conceded 4, got pulled for Soderblom, who then conceded 3, and then got pulled again and put Knight back in. And then you had a third period where you didn't concede any goals. So well done. 20 minutes without conceding a goal. That's good going for this Blackhawks team at the moment.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's just, you don't know what you have until it's gone, generally speaking. But I think everyone knew what you're going to miss when Bedard went out, and I hope it's not going to be for too long. We talk about him being an MVP. I don't think he's going to be the MVP this year, when the Hart, purely because of games lost and where this team's going. But yeah, just rough. You got the Islanders and Stars at home coming up, at a away trip against the Capitals, and then at home against the Golden Knights. It's not all over yet. Yes, you're down the bottom end of the league now. You're obviously bottom of this division, but you're not so far away that if Bedard comes back, you can get things back on track and your season can be rescued. But I have some doubts about where we're going to see Chicago at the end of the year. And if that puts you in the sweepstakes for McKenna, then wow. Okay. We'll have to do some lottery to stop from happening.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I suppose that is a positive, and if I can just spin a slightly positive yarn on this for a moment. Obviously, the World Juniors are going on at the moment. AJ Spellecy's been playing great for the US. Vaclav Nestesil playing great for Team Czechia. Anton Frondel has turned up and has been, an absolute dynamo on that Swedish team so far. So, the parts are coming. You've got Roman Kantsarov in the KHL, who is due to arrive in Chicago probably next season. Is pretty much the best player in the KHL this year, and is like 21, 22 years old. You've got guys in the OHL, you've got guys in college, guys who are all, playing really, really well. So it's on the horizon. These guys are all going to come at once, and it's pretty much going to be like, whoa, okay, all of a sudden we're getting a whole bunch of guys in, and this team looks way better. But right at the moment, it's just it's quite a tough watch. So optimistic for the future, but yeah, Bedard can't come back quick enough.
Did you say his name was Kanserov?
Yeah, so
Uh,
like Kantserov, it's like Kantser
ah,
of.
I was gonna say that was gonna be a really awful name if it was Kanserov.
Yeah,
Um,
that would have been a real
I
tough
mean,
one. Um,
imagine me. I would have changed my name if that was the case. That would have been rough. But anyway, I just wanted to check that because obviously I'm not familiar with the the Chicago's AHL players necessarily. But no, thanks for correcting me on that. Glad we got that all sorted out.
yeah, no, he's so he plays for Metallurg Magnitogorsk in the
Um,
smashed
I'm
it.
not even gonna try to pronounce that.
In the KHL, he's currently got 41 points in 37 games this year, including 24 goals. So yeah, he's been more or less pretty much the best player in the league this year. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing him come, and I think he will be a real surprising. I think he's going to surprise an awful lot of people
Yeah.
when he's here.
Right. So that team obviously covers our cheeks of the week segment, so there's no gap now. But we'll go into the next division then, unless you got anything more you wish to say about your Chicago team.
No, let's move on.
Let's move on. We're going to move on to the Metro, back over to the East. First place in that division, remaining in first place in that division, is the Carolina Hurricanes. They are third in our power rankings, so that looks good on us. They're sat on 49 points with a record of 23, 11, and 3. I mean, they've got 5 in 5, if that's any benefit to anyone. They started off the past couple of weeks with a away win at the Predators 4-1. They lost in a shootout against the Panthers 4-3 before going on a further 2-game loss streak against the Florida teams, losing against the Lightning 6-4 and then the Panthers 5-2 before coming back to beat the Red Wings 5-2. So pretty up and down week for the Hurricanes. They won some games by some fair margins, lost some by fair margins, and lost in the shootout.
Yeah, great week for Svechnikov. 3 goals, 6 assists. That's really helped his numbers. He's now up to sort of 27 points in 37 games this year. So yeah, it's been a nice sort of bright spark for them. Yeah, Brandon Bussey continues to be very good in goal. Freddie Anderson continues to not be very good in goal. But yeah, they still find themselves up on top of the division. So yeah, still really good from Carolina. They've got a busy schedule coming up. Coming up over the next week or so. They're at home to the Rangers, and then away to Pittsburgh in a back-to-back there. They then play the Habs at home on New Year's Day, and then they've then got another back-to-back at home to the Avalanche, and then on the road to the Devils. So a lot of travel happening for this Carolina team in the week coming up. Yeah, still out in front in this division, still looking pretty good. A little shout out as well, Shea Gostisbehere, 29 points in 28 games played, and a plus 12. He's having a really good season, and yeah, shame he's missed a few games there. Otherwise, he could have been someone who's making even more of an impact than he already is. But yeah, really impressive from him.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a very well-rounded team. We've said this before. There's no sort of star names making the headlines, but also they've got depth up and down this roster. They've got their own Lane Hudson and Gostisbehere, with lots of assists, 25 assists in 28 games, so he's passing the puck around with ease. They need to start splitting up, well, divvying out the goalkeeper starts to Bussy a lot more, or Kochetkov, because Anderson is not, every time he plays, he's having a shocker, which is really sad to see. But yeah, this team is steamrolling through. They're really sort of making steps to separate themselves now, I feel, in terms of quality and with the rest of this division as time passes on. So yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good from Carolina. It's kind of business as usual, and yeah, they'll take the lead at the top here and hopefully keep it there.
Yeah. Now, one of my sort of new pet teams, really, still staying second in the Metro Division, 23rd in our power rankings, is the New York Islanders, 46 points. A record of 21, 14, and 4, plus 3 in second place. They've had an up and down holiday period. 6 games, 3 losses, 2 wins, and a shootout loss as well. But they've done enough to stay in second place. So, what are your thoughts on the Islanders? Are you into them as much as I am at the minute?
Yeah, they're a better watch, I think, than we probably expected. Don't get me wrong; they play quite a slow brand of hockey. They're like sappers. They try and kind of suck the energy a bit out of the game, and it works for them. They're a team who rarely get kind of absolutely trounced. I mean, they lost 4-1 to the Canucks, but I think that you rarely see them get absolutely blown out in a lot of games. Equally, they don't win a lot of games by a massive amount either. So their games are always sort of tight, close. Rittich starting the last 4 games and playing really really well throughout, even in a couple of losses there, even in a 4-2 loss to the Blue Jackets, had a 918 save percentage. Got the shutout against the Rangers, got the win against the Devils, and then lost in the shootout, unfortunately, to the Sabres. But they're on the road to Chicago to round out the year before returning back home on New Year's Day to face the Utah Mammoth, and then they've got the Toronto Maple Leafs coming up. So, yeah, there's a particular incident in relation to a certain game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Do we want to do that now, or do we want to do that when we cover the Jackets? Because a bit of a talking point, I think, around the league.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it now purely because it sort of backs up a point I was going to make. In that this team, they're grinding out victories. They're not the same as the big on sort of Florida Panthers, but they find ways to win. They play close games. They play tough, but they stand up for their youngsters, which is what I like now. But on the same side, they are also boneheaded when they do this. So obviously, Matty Schaefer is doing great this year. First overall pick, he's smashing it. Played pretty much every game this year, and doing really well. And during preseason, they did protect him somewhat, and did not want him getting caught on a rush or anything like that, or getting hurt by other team members, etc. But they played a game against the Blue Jackets last night, and we'll touch on this. But the Blue Jackets have acquired Mason Marchment from the Seattle Kraken. Now, Marchment is an interesting character to say the least. And decided to take a little pot shot at Schaefer as he was skating by, giving a good old knee, which sent him sprawling to the ice and sliding down and pretty much scoring himself on Jet Greaves. Obviously, the Islanders, not liking that, decided to take it upon themselves to go after Marchment. But somewhat stupidly, is Matty Barzal, one of their best players, decides he's going to be the one who takes the game misconduct, and baseball bat swings Mason Marchment in the ankles with his stick. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that particular incident?
It was wild, absolutely wild. I mean, it was a yeah, I think a boneheaded play from Barzal, but nice to see those guys sticking up for the young guys. I mean, how Marchment came off, with both of his ankles still intact, or still attached to his body, I think is nothing short of a miracle. Because I thought Barzal was going to lop his foot off more or less. But yeah, an interesting melee. I mean, like you say, Marchment is a big body, he's a big guy. Took a real cheap run at Schaefer, and that's what you like to see. Is I'm sure Schaefer will take a lot of heart in knowing that guys have got his back, and Barzal. Well, spring training starts in Major League Baseball shortly, so maybe he signs with the New York Mets, and they see how he does up at bat, because that was a hell of a swing.
It was, and it was so blatant. He did not have a single regard for any of the refs. It wasn't like a sneaky little play behind the net when the puck's gone up the other side of the ice or anything like that. And for me, what makes it more boneheaded is that obviously it's the star player doing it. Switch up your lines, get your fourth line out there, and give him a bit of rough and tumble and smash him up if that's what you're inclined to do to protect your D man. Obviously, you need to do it timely, etc. But he got a major game misconduct, did Barzal, for that, and they ended up losing the game 4-2. So Marchment's got what he's wanted. He's took a shot at the defenseman, he's took a hit in return, but they lost their best player, and it's just don't have your best player defending your rookie D man when you're in a close game, because that is just the stupid idea. Like for the Tampa Bay Lightning, get Scott Saborin up and get him to fight 10 times in 3 games or whatever, something daft to defend your team. Not Barzal.
Yeah, and my lord, are we going to have a conversation about Scott Saborin? Spoiler alert. Yeah, no, completely agree. You've got to get someone out there from the fourth line, someone tough, especially someone who's kind of as fragile as Barzal's been in the past. You know, he's had a lot of injuries. The last thing that you need is him taking a swing at Marchment, someone else coming in and absolutely bulldozing him, and then you lose Barzal sort of long term. But I don't know if it's one of those things.
That's the thing. Barzal did that. He took that hit. He swung his stick and immediately knew what's happening and immediately cowered as the Columbus Blue Jackets all piled in on him.
Yeah,
was so funny.
Yeah.
Like he's like big, brave, like puppy.
Yeah, he had his moment, and then afterwards went, oh shit, like realise what he's done. I don't know if that's one of those things that the Department of Player Safety will look at or something like that. I don't know if he'll serve some sort of retrospective ban or if that's been issued already or not. But we'll wait and see. But it's the kind of play that you sometimes see someone maybe getting a game for. So you might have to maybe sit the next one out. But we'll wait and see what happens there.
Yeah. Right, we'll move on to the third team in this Metro division, and surprise, surprise, the Philadelphia Flyers are making yet more movement. They're up one spot, sat on 45 points, the 25th team in our power rankings. I must say, by the way, we've hit the nail on the head with these power rankings in the Metro. We had like 3 or 4 teams back to back to back to back, and we didn't know which ones are good and which ones are bad. And I still don't think we know, in quite honesty. But the Philadelphia Flyers have played 6 games in the past few weeks, 5 of them away. So they beat Habs, the Canadiens away from home, beat them 4-1 before then travelling to Buffalo and losing 5-3. Then they lost in a shootout against the Rangers, and then they had a nice game at home against the Vancouver Canucks in the middle of all this and beat them 5-2. Then went on the road again to beat your Blackhawks 3-1 before losing to the Kraken 4-1 this night. So, what are your immediate thoughts about the Flyers?
They are the perennial yo-yo team. I think I've described them as that more than once this season, and the yo-yo's on the way back up to the hand this week. Could well be on its way back down to the floor next week. Really hard to figure out who's good in this division, who isn't. But good week from Travis Konechny, 3 goals, 3 assists. A lot of road games happening for Philly at the moment. They've played 6 in the last couple of weeks, with 5 of those being on the road. They've got 3 more road games coming up. So, 8 of 9 on the road is a long time to be away. But, they're getting some results in there. They're pushing themselves up into these playoff spots, raising that conversation. Trevor Zegras is, point per game, 37 and 37. Travis Konechny's at 33 and 37. So they're starting to get that scoring. He's, they're doing well. And if they can keep it up, they can kind of find themselves maybe in a really interesting spot come the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this team. I don't necessarily see them being quite a yo-yo team. They're probably the most stable team in this division. It's the other teams that are doing well and doing bad, doing well and doing bad, and they're just kind of floating, and they're having to go up and down because of they're the boat in heavy seas, if that makes sense, where they're just trying to stay afloat, and other teams are crashing overboard all the time and stuff.
Well, yeah, yeah. I suppose you're right. They've kind of been pretty much sat around sort of the same spot, but have kind of been performing exactly the same throughout the whole season, and they've just been kind of sliding like third, fourth, fifth, third, fourth, like just like all season, but like have been
Yeah,
really stable. Maybe it's just a really short yo-yo. It's only like 10 centimeters long or something. But yeah,
yeah,
they've been probably consistent. Just found their position, moving around a fair bit.
yeah. I don't think they're going to be the top two teams in this division. I don't think they're going to be the bottom two teams in this division either. They are going to be somewhere around the middle come the end. And even if they end up making the playoffs, I think they're going to be one and done. They're that kind of team for me. But again, as I've said before, steady progress for the Flyers. Better than what they were doing last year, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And just sort of one more note on the Flyers. Obviously, I've mentioned a few times I do really like Trevor Zegras. He is on for a career year this year. Obviously, his previous highest total was 65 points in 81 games with the Anaheim Ducks. That was in the 22-23 season. But he's on course to go right past that this year if he keeps playing the way he's playing, and again seems as though he's found a real home in Philly, and hopefully stays there long term.
Yeah. Vladar's still doing great as well. I'm still dubious on Sam Ersson as an NHL goaltender. But yeah, solid team, solid.
Mm.
The fourth team in this division is the 27th power rank team. They're sat on 45 points down a spot. It's the Washington Capitals. Again, this is a definition of, for me, a yo-yo team. They were all the way down in eighth, and they went all the way up to first, and now they're back down in fourth. They've had a yo-yo type of. I don't even know how I'm going to start explaining the games that they've had because they've flip-flopped that much. They started off with a 5-0 shutout loss against the Wild. They then shut out the Maple Leafs 4-0. They then lost to the Red Wings 5-2. And then, though I say that, sorry, when you play the same team back to back, you generally split it. But they lost in overtime against the Red Wings 3-2. They then lost 7-3 to the New York Rangers of all teams, and then beat the Devils in overtime 4-3. So I honestly no idea with this team.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much like what an up and down sort of Christmas period they've been, just sort of battering teams, getting battered, losing in overtime, winning in overtime. Like, yeah, just really, really hard to figure this out. But yeah, I think we've certainly seen they've got kind of the scoring to make an impression in this division. They're just one of the many teams, along with kind of half of the NHL, it certainly seems at the moment, who are just having some sort of consistency issues. And yeah, I mean, obviously, as we kind of roll into the new year, it's starting to move towards crunch time. And if they want to kind of push on for those playoffs, they're just going to have to find that level of consistency. But they've got the Panthers on the road coming up, and then they face the Rangers at home again, kind of looking to avenge that 7-3 loss. Before they then go on the road to the Senators and return home to face the Blackhawks after that. So, yeah, I think there's certainly an option for them to get some consistency. Those games are all seemingly winnable, and if they can come away with 6 points from those 8 available, I think they take that and should put them in a decent spot.
I think it's mad that Chikrin has as many goals this year as the great Alexander Ovechkin, and Tom Wilson has more than either of them. But that sort of penalises their season, really.
Yeah,
Look, I think this team has some quality. They've got one of the best plus minuses for what it's worth. They just seem to need to put it all together again, like many other teams do. But we'll see where we end up down the line.
yeah, for sure.
So we're going to go to the fifth team in this division, the sixth power ranked team, New Jersey Devils. They've actually moved up one spot this week, starting 42 points. They started out this past few weeks with a penalty shootout win over the Golden Knights, a 2-1 win against Utah Mammoth, and then they were celebrating the return of Jack Hughes, who subsequently lost 3 on the bounce. The Buffalo Sabres, New York Islanders, and Washington Capitals in overtime. So, yeah, who knows with this New Jersey Devils team? They've got all their players back now, but now they're losing games, so I get another team I can't get my head around.
Yeah, hopefully they can. I mean, we saw it, didn't we, with Ottawa when Brady Tkachuk came back and they just went on a little bit of a dip in form. But look, Jack Hughes being back for this team is massive now. They're still on 42 points, so they're still well in it. That really good start to the season that they had kind of, put them in a good spot to allow something like this to happen. But hopefully now Hughes can pick up where he left off, and they can make a bit of a push. Been really impressed with Hischier in his absence. I think he's probably been one of the only guys coming away from this with who's really sort of shown his skill, kind of in a really, what am I trying to say? He's just been really, really good at stepping up and filling that void. But yeah, hopefully they're able to put some wins back on the board, get themselves back up into those playoff spots. They've got a couple of road games against the Maple Leafs and the Jackets, and then they've got the Mammoth and the Hurricanes back at home. So definitely some winnable games in there for them, and some games they'll be hoping can move them back up the standings.
Yeah. I just hope Jack Hughes isn't going to have the Travis Kelce effect from the NFL, and when he's got a high-profile pop superstar girlfriend that his head isn't going to be too busy elsewhere, and he can actually get back on the hockey and play some decent game.
Is that official? Is that official then? Him and Miss McRae.
I mean, I'm not part of his inner circle, so I can't say for certain what's going on.
They've certainly been pictured together a lot, haven't they?
Reddit birdies. They certainly have. They could just be friends, but likewise, it's a distraction, and you can't have no distractions in hockey. It's all about hockey. Get on the ice, and that's it. You can't have a social life. No. I joke, of course, and I make that reference to Travis Kelce, particularly because the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL have gone off a cliff this year and have not even made the playoffs. Never mind for the Super Bowl. So I'm just thinking, similar trajectory for this New Jersey Devils. Are they going to miss the playoffs this year because of that? I don't know. It's probably got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Right, 6th team in this division, upper spot, 24th in our power rankings. The New York Rangers, again, a team I can't, for love of the money, work out what they are. But this team, again, still frustrates me. They played 6 games. They got shut out by the Vancouver Canucks. They didn't beat the Blues in overtime. The Flyers in a shootout. And then lost against the Predators 2-1. Then somehow managed to find how to score and beat the Capitals 7-3, and then got shut out again by the New York Islanders. So I wish I had this stat to mind, but it'd be interesting to see at the end of the year how many times the Rangers get shut out this year, and I bet it's probably twice as many as any other team.
Yeah, they've just it's been super rough. We've spoken about them at length about how much they just piss us off this year. I just don't know what the New York Rangers are. I can't figure it out. It annoys me that I can't figure it out. Like they'll absolutely blast some teams and then they'll get shut out, and then they'll grind out a win in like overtime or in a shootout, and then they'll get shut out. And then, something else will happen, and then they'll get shut out. And it's like, oh my God, can we just figure this out as to what they're going to be, please? Because it's driving me crazy at this point. But they are in the midst of a road trip at the moment. That continues into the week. They've got the Hurricanes, the Capitals, and the Panthers all coming up on the road. So some tricky games, but no doubt I think they'll probably destroy one of those teams, something like 6-2. And then they'll probably get shut out. So we'll I'm done trying to figure this team out.
Yeah, I think it can be said that they are going through some injuries at the minute. Obviously, Fox is still out. JT Miller's now out. I'm not sure exactly how long for, but obviously 2 of your biggest names, biggest leaders in the changing room who've gone. I mean, a shining light on this team is their goaltending duo are great and are performing, even on bad days. That they're still keeping them in games as much as they can possible. But they're they're the absolute opposite from the Philadelphia Flyers this year, where you know what you're going to get with the Flyers, you just don't know what you're going to get with the Rangers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They make no sense. There's just yeah, I'm done. I'm done with the Rangers this year.
Yeah. Agreed. Now, the seventh team in a bit of a free fall in this division now, down 2 spots. That the Pittsburgh Penguins sat on 41 points. If it wasn't for the game last night against your Blackhawks, we'd be looking at one of the worst sort of weeks in, well, one of the worst reviews of a team in during this podcast's run. To be fair, they played 6 games, getting spanked by everyone. And they lost 6-4 against the Oilers before back-to-back 4-0 loss shutouts against the Senators and the Canadiens. They did then return back home to face the Canadiens and beat them in a shootout. And I put that down to the fact that 2 games back-to-back against the same team, you tend to split those series. But then went back to losing heavily 6-3 against the Maple Leafs before they faced your Blackhawks.
Yeah, what a rough one. For Pittsburgh, completely kind of unraveling before our very eyes. They're still on 41 points, so they're still sort of in there, kind of. But lo and behold, Stuart Skinner arrives in Pittsburgh, and he's not very good. 3 starts for him, no wins. 4.18 goals against average and an 831 save percentage, which is just woof. It's been it's kind of what we expect. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're all comfortable in saying at this particular point in time that Stuart Skinner, not a great NHL goalie, but here we are. They've got the Hurricanes and Red Wings coming up at home before they then go on the road to face the Red Wings and then the Blue Jackets in a back-to-back there. So, look, they are still sort of within touching distance, but it's starting to fade a little bit, and I suppose they're kind of at a crossroads as to which direction they want to go now. Do they still think they can make a push for the playoffs, or do they still think, are they thinking that maybe, now might be the time to move some pieces on? I don't know. We're going to get to that Olympic break, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more clarity on of where teams are at by then. But still, we're at Christmas, we're coming towards the new year, and it's still super close in a lot of these divisions. So I think that's probably impacting a lot of general managers' thought processes this year, I think.
Yeah. I still think they're in it. They're down in 7th, but the bottom of this division and the points totals, they can easily swing it around and come back up again. I think what's interesting is the fact that they've taken probably many games to overtime, but have a knack of losing them when they should be winning them. And those 1 points should turn into 2 points and could see a big swing between 7th and, let's say, 3rd or 4th in this division. That trade for Skinner is, well, I'm not sure whether they traded for Skinner, but just got him back, and Edmonton traded for Jari. But as we got onto the Edmonton Oilers in a bit of time, I do think Skinner is just not a great goaltender, and we thought it was kind of a bit more equal with Jari going away in return. But you've seen with Edmonton that they've brought up another keeper who seems to be doing better than everyone that's played for them so far.
Yeah.
What this means for Pittsburgh now, for me, is just, well, get Yoroshev back up and back playing again. Let's see more of this young kid playing, because Skinner is already proving he's not going to be the future starter in Pittsburgh. Silovs, though, steady, is a second goaltender. He shouldn't be a starter for me. In which case, then we'll see what you've got. Make something happen with Skinner or Silovs, get them out of the way and get the Miroshov playing.
Yeah, he was good when he came up. He was good when they came up, and I just think at the moment Skinner's potentially somewhat of a roadblock. But they got that second round pick back in in that trade, so silver linings and all. But yeah, well, I would be inclined to give Murashov a bit of a call up and a bit of a run and just see what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the two goaltenders you've got are not the future. They're definitely not the future. We move on then into the bottom place team in this division, who remain at the bottom. They were the best of the group of Metro teams we put together in the power rankings at number 22. 3 points behind with 38 points. And on the face of it, they've had a pretty decent couple of weeks of it. They beat the Ducks in overtime 4-3 before losing against the Wild 5-2. Lost against the Ducks 4-3, but then have since beaten the Kings 3-1, and then that Islanders game from last night, they won 4-2. So they're still langing at the bottom, but I'm not counting them out just yet.
No, no, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, Mason Marchment isn't a complete game changer. He's not gonna come in and put up sort of top line minutes, but he adds a bit of grit into that team. They've still got 40 points in 35 games from Zach Werenski so far this year, who has just been absolutely terrific and really leading that team. I'm not willing to count them out yet. I think we're maybe a few weeks away from that yet. If they do sort of continue to slip a little, but as is the case with any of these teams in this division, they are sort of one half decent run away from getting themselves up into a good playoff spot. So you look at Columbus on 38 points. You look at Carolina on 49 points. So there's 11 points separating the top and bottom of this division, whilst you've got 13 points separating third and fourth in the Central. So this division is wide open at the moment.
I'm certainly not counting Megs before they've hatched it in this division. I think on the end of the year it could be completely different to what we're looking at right now. Which kind of makes it quite exciting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Columbus, they need to get some more scoring from their forwards. You can't have Werenski 11 points clear from your second place top scoring on your team as a defenseman. He's an absolute stud, and I'm glad I've got him on my fantasy team. But you need some more scoring from your forwards.
Yeah,
Mason Marchment might do that for them. But as we've seen, he's more likely to get some penalty minutes than he is a goal. Goals and goals and goals.
Right.
Should we talk about plays of the week?
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Stones of the week.
Ooh, we'll do plays because it's going to lead into this next division quite well. Now, obviously, around this time, myself and Nathaniel have been incredibly busy with with work, seeing family, that sort of thing. So maybe haven't had the opportunity to watch as much hockey as I usually would. Plays of the week, though. I mean, I've just gone with the whole week as a whole. I've just written McJesus at the wheel. Connor McDavid has just seemingly found his mojo and then some. 16 points on the week. We're going to come to Edmonton in this next division within the Pacific. But yeah, 6 goals, 10 assists. He's now out in front in the points total for the league. He's leapfrogged Nathan MacKinnon by 4 points. He's now on 68 points in 39 games. So Connor McDavid doing what Connor McDavid does. He is well and truly at the wheel of this team, and I think is largely responsible for their upturn in form.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. I'm sure there might have been several individual plays that should be worthy with a mention at this point, but I think it's hard to argue with McJesus being at least a player of the week, and I'm certainly some of his players should be definitely up there as well.
For sure.
What player?
Yeah, we are blessed to be living in a period of time where we are watching someone like Connor McDavid play the game.
Yeah. Right. That being said, then we'll go into the Pacific Division. And no, Edmonton haven't made such a stretch that they're now the top of this division, but not far off. We'll go into the first team who remain on top with 45 points. Fifth in our power rankings, the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm waiting for this team, Matt, to either show us something or get out of the way, because every time I don't know how they've racked up so much points when all we ever see them do is kind of lose. But they played 5 games this past few weeks. They lost in a shootout to the Devils and to the Avalanche. Lost against the Flames and the Oilers when they travelled to Alberta, but then did beat the Sharks 7-2 at home. So, not that good a week for the Vegas Golden Knights, all being said, but they remain top of the division.
Yeah, 4 points from 10 games, and like you said, they've lost 19 games this year. Just 11 of those have been in either overtime or a shootout. So, that's where they've accumulated those extra 11 points, and seemingly kind of what has put them out on top of this division. But a good week from Mitch Marner. He's got 7 points across those 5 games. Thomas Hertel with 7 points across those 5 games. Noah Hannafin with 7 assists as well. And Mark Stone coming in. Mark Stone's still on 29 points in 20 games this year. So, that injury was a real shame. Obviously, completely anticipated with it being Mark Stone. But, a really good, he's having a good season factoring in the time he's missed. But, they've got the Wild at home, the Predators at home, and then on the road to the Blues and the Blackhawks in the new year. But I'm in complete agreement with you. They either kind of need to take charge of this division or just get out of the way, because they are still on top of this division, but frustratingly, just not actually performing as well as would have liked. I would just prefer them to get out the way and let some of these slightly more exciting teams take the reins in this division.
It's really what's going to happen. They'll skate through into the playoffs, and then they'll somehow do some voodoo magic and get through to quite far in the playoffs, knocking off some of the teams that we either like more or think deserve a bigger run, because they'll just, I don't know, they'll work something out. They'll bend the rule to their advantage, and you know what? They're getting up there in just teams that I just don't like. I just don't care for them.
They're an easy team to not like for many reasons.
Yeah. Oh dear. Again, they brought through Carter Hart, and he's still below a 900 save percentage on the year. So they still can't find a decent goaltender.
Yeah.
Anyway, that will move on, I think, to a team that I think we all like more. The Anaheim Ducks, 8th in our power rankings, remain second in this division, just a point behind Vegas on 44 points. They've had a rough time over Christmas, to be fair. They lost 3 in regulation to the Stars, Kraken and Kings. They lost in overtime to the Blue Jackets, but then did beat the Blue Jackets in regulation as well. And I just think, more than anything, the Ducks just need a better goaltender, really.
Yeah, for sure. I think they've been unfortunate. Dostal's the guy that they've decided to put the faith in, put the trust in. He's going through a really kind of unfortunate kind of downturn in form at the moment. He's really not been playing that well. They've kind of been on sort of working that rotation of Husso and Mrazek, and kind of just not quite getting the results that they would have liked. You've got Granlund on 6 points in those last 5 games, so he's had a reasonable week. Obviously they missed, they did miss Carlson for a game, but they're just, there's on the end of some really, really heavy losses. And like we've said, they've been in this position before this season where they've they're a young team, and they're going to go through these over the course of the season, and they just need to figure out how to sort of kick that skid and get back in the win column. They've got some home games to do that. They've got the Sharks, they've got the Lightning, they've got the Wild coming up. Not easy games by any stretch of the imagination, but they've got the players to do it. I really like this team. I really hope they make the playoffs this year. And yeah, I'm pulling for them.
I think this is going to be the heartbreak team of the season. I just don't think they've got enough grit and experience to either make a deep playoff run, but I can also see them as being the ones that just miss out for some reason. I don't want that to be the case, but I just think that every year there's a team we want to make the playoffs and they don't, and this is going to be that one too.
I
Other than
really
your
hope that's
Blackhawks.
not the case. But yeah, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for them for as long as possible.
Yeah. We touched on them briefly, but the Edmonton Oilers, they're now at one spot. They're also on 44 points, 1 point behind top spot. What a turnaround for them. Happy for them and everything. But they've played 6 games this week, well, this past couple of weeks, and they've won 4 of them and lost 2. So they beat the Penguins 6-4, beat the Bruins 3-1. They lost against my Wild 5-2. Beat the Golden Knights 4-3, and then a back-to-back against the Flames. Well, not day on a day basis, but 2 games back-to-back against the Flames where they won the first one 5-1. And as I've said, they lost the second one 3-2. So the big storylines from I think the Oilers this week is McDavid going off, Draisaitl also going off, but also the standout performance of a Connor Ingram in goal.
Yeah, he's come in. He's done, done really well. Obviously, Jari had to go on IR as soon as they traded for him, which is a shame. But Ingram's come in. He's played well. And this team, as we know, they're an offensive juggernaut. Zach Hyman coming back into that team with 3 goals and 6 assists. In those 6 games. He was a big miss for them and in the early parts of the season, and really good to have him back in the lineup. Even Bouchard getting 7 points in those 6 games as well. Obviously not defending too much, but we know what he is at this point. But yeah, anytime you've got McDavid and Draisaitl, you're going to be within a shot of winning any game, and they've done just that, barring that 5-2 away loss to the Wild. They've been right in there, scoring loads of goals, conceding quite a few goals, kind of doing what Edmonton do, but finding themselves a point off the top spot.
Who'd have thought a big difference maker on a team would be Connor McDavid and Neil Draisaitl? I think this team's in prime position now. They were dangling back. I think now they're a point off the top spot. I can see them stretching this out and taking control of this division. They've got games against the Jets, Bruins, and Flyers. If McDavid's continues on this current form, that they could win it every single one of those games. But yeah, what an interesting division this is turning out to be. Not one
Certainly is.
team, yeah, really running out for it.
Certainly is.
Anything more on the Oilers, or should
No,
we move on?
we'll move into 4th spot, I think.
Yeah. Down a spot this week on 41 points, are still in with a shout as the 11th power ranked team, the Los Angeles Kings. Again, they're kind of like the Philadelphia Flyers of the Western Conference for me, the Kings now. They're kind of always there or thereabouts, moving up and down depending on other teams. They played 5 games, they lost 3 and won 2. They lost a tight one against the Florida Panthers and beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 2-1 on their trip to Florida. They then went back home and lost against the Blue Jackets 3-1, the Kraken 3-2 before demolishing the Ducks 6-1. So yeah, do you think my analysis is correct in that respect? Are they the Flyers of the Western Conference?
Yeah, I think so. And interestingly, we had that wild card kind of discussion, didn't we? About was it the Kings and the Flyers? Was it earlier in the year? Or was that another team? I forget.
Blues. Kings and Blues.
The Kings and Blues. But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, barring that 6-1 win against the Ducks, as I've always said, they play in a lot of very tight games. 3-2, 2-1, 3-1, 3-2. They play in a lot of very, very close, highly contested games. So yeah, they're hanging in there at the moment. They may be kind of more wildcard contenders, I think, than necessarily playoff contenders. But they're playing pretty well. Kopitar still, 4 assists on the week. He's on his swan song year at 20 points in 33 games, so still getting a decent productivity from him. And yeah, just be interesting to see kind of where they continue to push. Obviously, they've got their last game of the year is away to the Colorado Avalanche, so we'll see what happens there. And then they've got the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Minnesota Wild. So 3 very difficult games for them. We'll see how they do and see if they can kind of maintain themselves around this sort of spot at the moment and keep pushing for a wildcard spot.
Yeah. I think that's what's going to end up. I could see them and maybe the Ducks further down the line duking it out for the last spot. And then just because of how strong potentially the Central might be, that's where the Ducks might miss out on the playoffs. If they just finish fourth and both wildcard goes to the Central. But yeah, I think the Kings are just very solid. They got talent up and down the roster. They did trade Philip Danault from them for the Montreal Canadiens. They lost a bit of depth there, but yeah, I just think they're a solid team.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's a fair analysis.
So move on then to the 28th power rank team, 5th in this division still, and the San Jose Sharks. And I think we have to revisit these power rankings soon because I think it's time that they've shown that they're not quite so far down the league, but they're on a -17 on the season, and again another team who've won 2 and lost 3 out of their 5 games. Beat the Flames and the Canucks 6-3 each time, but then they've lost quite considerably to the Stars, Kraken, and Golden Knights in the middle of all that. So obviously Macklin Celebrini still going off with 4 goals and 6 assists, but the Sharks are a fun little exciting team that aren't going to really go anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's perfect for them, and Celebrini tying Sidney Crosby in the NHL all-time record for points scored by a teenager before Christmas, which is quite a niche little record there. But yeah, he's beaten Wayne Gretzky, he has tied Sidney Crosby, and yeah, he's done very, very well. He's a very, very good player. Will for sure be on that Team Canada roster come Olympic time. But yeah, they're a fun team. They'll win some games, they'll lose some games. When they do lose, they tend to lose by quite a lot. But yeah, they are missing Will Smith at the moment. That's for sure. They just lost a little bit of that offensive punch. But Graf has stepped up, 5 goals and an assist in that time. Chernyshov with a goal and 4 assists in that time. So they're doing reasonably well, and yeah, they're a fun watch.
They're a fun watch, and just going back to the record Celebrini's just broken, don't you think that these days they are just coming up with the most bizarre statistical records just to push a certain narrative of some sort? It's
100%.
It's like the most backhanded goals through the goalkeeper's 5-hole from centre ice in the first period of a game whilst down a man
on a Tuesday.
And you just say, on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
and you just say, he's a fucking good player.
Yeah,
like, just stop it. Like, yes, he's a teenager prospect. I'm more towards you on this, rather Bedard versus Celebrini kind of thing. But he's just a great player. He's going to break some records. He's not going to break others just because of the way it goes. And it's just, let's see where we are 15 years down the line when the records that are long standard tested. Like, those are the records that people care about, not how fast has he come to 50 points in the league or something daft like that, because anyone can have a fast start and then just trail off.
Absolutely. And yeah, I've been saying it all year, like, let's just enjoy him for what he is. Like, we know that he's a fantastic player and will probably be a fantastic player for the next 10 to 20 years. We don't need to be coming up with these like hyper niche like records for him to break to like push that more. Like, we already know he's good, so like let's just leave it alone. Like, let's just accept how good he is.
He could equally break his leg really badly, and I don't wish this on anybody whatsoever, but he could really badly break his leg and he can't skate again. And we'll miss him, and it'll be sad for the league, etc., like that. But he won't go down in history as one of the greatest players of all time in that sort of scenario. It would have been what could have been type of conversation. But anyway,
Yeah,
I'll stop myself there because I'll end up ranting and
let's just like give it a
going
minute.
off the rails.
Let's just let it breathe. Let it breathe.
Right. Okay. Oh, great. We've got to talk about the Seattle Kraken winning 4 in a row now.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really.
No.
Like, we can just touch on it.
Yeah, just touch on it. Yeah, the 15th team in our power ranking, 6th in this division, staying there at 38 points. The Seattle Kraken. Yeah, they lost against the Avalanche 5-3, lost against the Flames 4-2, and then for some reason have gone on a 4-game winning streak against the Sharks, Ducks, Kings, and Flyers. Tolvanen getting 10 points in 6 games, great for him. Stevenson with 7 points in 6 games, good for him. Tolvanen's now the top scorer on the team, good for him.
Yep, perfect.
That's about it.
Yep. Canucks at home, Predators at home, Canucks on the road. Decent goaltending, obviously, from Decord and Grubauer. I just had to mute my microphone so I could sneeze there. Yeah, I think that's that.
Yeah, they traded probably one of the most exciting players in Marchment to Columbus to make them even more boring. Yeah, next.
Works for me.
Which is the 7th team in this division, 32nd in our power rankings. It's the Calgary Flames. 36 points accumulated with a better plus minus than Seattle has. They lost against the Sharks 6-3, and they lost against the Oilers 5-1, as we said before, but beat the Kraken 4-2, beat the Golden Knights 6-3, and beat the Oilers 3-2. So, yeah, another team. God, the bottom of this division just sucks, doesn't it, really?
It's really turgid.
To talk about.
It's really, really turgid. Like, I just don't really want to talk about any of these teams. But yeah, I mean, the Calgary Flames, they're garbage. We know that. They're absolute ass. They'll win some games because a team can't go 0-82 throughout a season. Yeah, Backlund's had a decent week. Uyghur's had a decent week. You know, Dustin Wolf has had a reasonable couple of performances, was pretty poor in that game against San Jose, but other than that, I mean, they go on a bit of a home stretch now. They've got the Bruins, the Flyers, and the Predators coming up. But yeah, I think we're another week closer to Nazem Kadri getting traded, another week closer to Rasmus Andersson getting traded. The Calgary Flames are poor. Let's, oh God, I don't even want to talk about this next team either. Let's get out of Calgary, let's get out of 8th place, and let's move into the final division.
Oh, come on. I like the Vancouver Canucks purely because half their roster is now Minnesota Wild players. They're like our little pet team now with Rossi, Boyum, and Ogren. So I'm only watching this team closely to see how all these youngsters are getting on. But no, yeah. Vancouver Canucks, bottom of the division, 33 points, minus 22. Beat the Rangers 3-0, Islanders 4-1. Beat the Bruins in a penalty shootout 5-4, and then they realise, actually, even though we've signed all these players, we're actually meant to suck. And then lost against the Flyers 5-2 and the Sharks 6-3. Demko's back, doing all right. Games against the Kraken, Flyers, Kraken and Bruins coming up.
Yep.
And Quinn Hughes is still their top scorer.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just about to say. I was like, leading point scorer on this Vancouver Canucks team is Quinn Hughes, who is not even there anymore. So, yeah.
Who did not want to be there since day dot, but anyway.
No, absolutely not.
And they've...
Go on.
And the healthy scratching not Kiefer Sherwood, the healthy scratching Jake DeBrusque as well.
Oh, good. Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that news coming out, but yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay. let's move on into the last division. Well, actually, before that, let's talk about Stones of the Week.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do
some
you want to go off on the Stones
yeah.
of the Week?
Stones of the week for me is Arber Xhekaj. This guy's an absolute. Well, I love the guy. I mean, not only is he just absolute nails, and he is just an absolute physical monster. He can also play a bit as well, which I do love. I do love. So he had the incident with Nikita Zadorov in the in their game against Boston, where the two of them have skated to centre ice to throw down in front of all the fans. A nice little festive treat there. Love watching two big heavyweights just go at it, and that was a great tilt. And then he had to square up against Scott Sabourin of the Tampa Bay Lightning, who there was a little bit of needle between them beforehand, a little bit of pushing, a little bit of shoving. One got kind of just checked. They threw the gloves down. And, I mean, poor Scott Sabourin, I still don't think he knows what year it is at this point. Xhekaj beat the brakes off him and I think sent him not only to the Shadow Realm, but back down to the AHL, where I think Sabourin belongs. Absolute nails on Arber Xhekaj, and an absolutely massive set of stones.
Yeah. But he could also play hockey, as opposed to Matt Rempe.
Yeah.
But no, that's a boring tilt was one of those things where you got to give Scott Sabourin some credit. Like he wasn't coy about it. He sort of chased him down. He started the fight, and there was simply no defense in that fight. They were just swinging at each other over and over and over again. And Xhekaj got lucky and hit his chin, and he folded down like a camping table.
Yep.
And also credit to Xhekaj, as when he saw him hit the floor, he immediately got separated by the ref, looked over to the bench, was waving people on to help him out. And Sabourin was, that John Travolta gif
of him
where he
in
sort of
Pulp
got his hands up
Fiction,
in the air, looking around all lost. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And he's just kind of like that. Sabourin does not know where he is.
Yeah. No
helped
idea.
down the ice, not because of a physical injury.
Dazed. Absolutely dazed.
Right, and as we move into the Atlantic Division, I do have to say that Matt's had to jump off as he's got something else planned. So it will just be me running through this division all by myself. So hope you can bear with me with my dulcet tones as I go through this division. But up one spot this week is actually the Detroit Lions. Now, up on spot, like I say, in first place, they're 14th in our power rankings, sat on 49 points. That being said, they're also on a -4 plus minus, which goes to show how this division is also a bit up and down at the moment. But they've had a busy schedule. They've played 7 games. Now they've won 5. 3 of them have come in overtime, and then 2 losses in regulation as well. So they started off with back-to-back games against the Islanders and the Mammoth, beating the Islanders 3-2 before losing to the Mammoth 4-1. They then had back-to-back games against the Capitals, firstly in Washington, where they actually won, 5-2. They then won again in overtime, 3-2, when played at home. They then travelled to play the Stars, beating them in overtime 4-3, before a loss away at Carolina 5-2, and then an overtime win again, this time against the Maple Leafs 3-2. So out of the 7 games, they had 2 players on more than a point per game. Moritz Seider with 3 goals, 5 assists. Lucas Raymond coming in with a goal and 7 assists. And fairly plain goalkeeping, let's say, with Gibson and Talbot. So alternating games in the net. No one game has sparkled. They haven't done really well, and they haven't done poor either. So looking at what that means for their sort of season stats-wise, I think Raymond's out front with 42 points in 38 games, chipping with 11 goals and 31 assists. DeBrincat coming in with a point per game, 20-20 for 40 points in 40 games. But yeah, Larkin, Seider, Kane all making up the rest of that top 5. So they've got 3 games coming up this week. At home against the Jets, away against the Penguins, before they play the Penguins again at home. So obviously, with the Penguins now they're in with the Jets as well. They've got a good chance to extend their lead. Detroit have. So fingers crossed they'll do all right and keep us entertained as hockey fans. A bit of a surprise package, I think you can sort of say. With every year you'll tend to find teams either drop out of the playoffs and a few new teams join the playoffs. And Detroit might be one of the new faces in the playoffs this year. Who would have thought it at the start of the year? But yeah, so a good week for the Red Wings, cementing their first place in this division. In second place in this division, down one spot this week is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, I personally don't think this is due to their skill that they've dropped a spot, but more for games played, because Detroit have played 2 more games than them. Tampa Bay coming with 5 games, 4 wins, 1 in a shootout, and a singular loss. So they currently sit at 47 points. They lost to the Kings 2-1 before the 4-game winning stretch against the Hurricanes 6-4, the Blues 4-1, the Panthers in a heated derby once again 4-2, and then last night they beat the Montreal Canadiens 5-4 in a shootout. They sit 9th in our power rankings to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I still think that's about fair. They are an extremely solid team who are probably favourites to win most games that they play, but they have suffered some injuries. Victor Hedman's still out. The defence has really taken a hit, to be fair. But that hasn't stopped Nikita Kucherov coming through with 4 goals and 3 assists in 5 games. Jake Gunsel coming through with 3 goals and 3 assists. Brandon Hagel's back after a head injury. The other place always seems to target his head for some reason. Like I say, that brawl, that Mammoth game against the Panthers again, it's just incredible. Like every time them two play each other, they spend more time in the penalty box than they do actually on the ice. But they're on a plus 25 at the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they look forward to a away trip to California, playing the Ducks, Kings, and Sharks. So they should be able to press on and move on from there a lot better. So Vasilevsky's still smashing it in goal as well, and Johansson's not doing too bad. And a new contract for JJ Moser, an 8-year, $6.75 million deal. I think that's a great contract for him. Great contract for Tampa Bay. He's stepped up this year when other defenders have gone down with injury, and I think he's been well rewarded with that contract. But for 8 years as well, they've really tied themselves to him and him to them for a significant amount of time. We're then moving to the third place team in this division, and still in third is the Montreal Canadiens. They are 7th in our power rankings, but they're still up there doing well. Look, they've got a record of 20, 12, and 6, also sitting on a -2 plus-minus. So, I suppose we see with Tampa Bay, who have clearly showed that they're a better team a lot of the time and then lose close games. Montreal are very up and down, I'd say. They've had a fairly decent few weeks. They lost against the Flyers 4-1, but then came out and beat the Blackhawks 4-1 and the Penguins 4-0. The second game of their back-to-back against the Penguins, they lost a shootout 4-3 before going on the road and beating the Bruins 6-2. And then, as I mentioned before, they lost in the penalty shootout to the Lightning 5-4. They went 3-0 down in that game, and they fought back, sort of take it to overtime, and then lost in the shootout. I think Slavovsky scored in the last few seconds, so never count this Montreal team out. Slavovsky, I'm sure Matt will rinse me for my pronunciation of his name, is coming big this week with 4 goals and 4 assists. Hudson, again, chipping in with 8 assists, and Dobson and Demidov coming in with 3 goals, 4 assists. This is a young team full of promise and potential. The standout players are all young. Suzuki, young captain, 42 points in 38 games. But Demidov, up there for Calder Trophy. Winner potentially. He's at 32 points in 38 games, leading all rookies at the moment. But one thing I wanted to touch upon is the goalkeeper Jacob Fowler. Montembeault has had his struggles this year. I think he's facing the fact that he's not only lost his place at the Olympics, but also lost his place in this team. Jakob Dobes obviously smashing it throughout the start of the year. Fowler's come in, getting a shutout and several key results, and even though his stat line last night against the Lightning wasn't that great, he performed really quite well, so they're well set up there. Now they're in the middle of a 7-game away trip, and they visit the Panthers, Hurricanes, Blues, and the Stars in this coming up week. So again, the schedule doesn't get any easier. I have a feeling though Montreal are still going to be there or thereabouts, so especially in this division where there's a lot of teams who aren't quite cutting it at the moment. I think they are good, well placed, and I know they're a favourite team of mine and Matt's this year. So moving on then into the 4th place team in this division, the Florida Panthers. Up 1 spot yet again. They're on the march. They're on 42 points. There is a bit of a gap between the top 3 and the best of the rest in this division, as we'll go on to talk about. Between 4th place and 8th place is 1 point separating all of these teams, or 2 points separating all of these teams. So one given night, these standings could change all of a sudden. But yeah, the Panthers up 1 spot. They're 21st in our power rankings, and they played 5 games over the holiday period, getting a 6 points out of a possible 10. So they beat the Kings 3-2. They then beat the Hurricanes in a shootout 4-3. Suffered a poor performance against St. Louis Blues, losing 6-2, before then beating the Hurricanes again 5-2, and then losing that derby against the Lightning 4-2. So they're on a +1. They're doing all right. And Matthew Tkachuk was seen practicing with a non-contact jersey, so he's a matter of a week or so away, I would say. And how this team could do with a player like him coming back to the lineup, that might be the catalyst to see them really propel themselves up the standings. In his absence, though, Brad Marchand, Sam Reinhart coming in with 2 goals and 5 assists, and Sam Bennett coming in with 3 goals, 3 assists, and probably 3 game misconducts against the Lightning alone. Young Tarasov's doing all right in goal when he's given the opportunity, and Bobrovsky's out of his 3 games this week has hit below 900 in all of his save percentages. But I mean, they're forced to be reckoned with, the Florida Panthers. Don't rule them out. They continue with 4 home games against the Capitals, the Canadiens, the Rangers, and the Avalanche. Go them, really. I think they're going to do all right against some of those teams. Close. Obviously, the Avalanche is going to be pushing them to the brink, and the Canadiens will be a proper battle. But I fancy their chances this week, the Panthers, to really push on. Fingers crossed for them. Now, the surprise team of the week, and no doubt I'm the conspiracy theory here why Matt isn't with me right now, because he doesn't really want to talk about the fact that the Buffalo Sabres are now up to 5th in this division, up 3 spots, 42 points, having won every single game, 5 games, and I think they're on an 8-game win streak of the Sabres now. So they made lots of changes behind the scenes, the GMs and things like that, and it seems to have had an immediate impact. They are still 31st in our power rankings, but they started off the week with a 5-3 victory against the Flyers. They then beat the Islanders in a shootout 3-2. They then beat the Devils in New Jersey 3-1. Beat the Senators in overtime 3-2. And then beat the Bruins at home 4-1. They got 3 away games coming up against the Blues, Stars, and Blue Jackets. Okay, they put it on paper. They've won lots of games in a row, so we have to kind of treat them seriously. This winning streak won't last forever, and how they deal with that loss again and where their heads are at that point will determine how their season will go. We all know the history of Buffalo, especially the recent history of Buffalo. Are they going to turn it around and keep pushing and make a run for the playoffs? I am still in the dubious side of the fence. Obviously, if it happens, it happens. I'll be happily proven wrong, but we shall see. I don't think they have enough pieces to make a big push, to be fair. That leads us into the 6th place team then, up 1 spot this week. The Ottawa Senators sat on 41 points. They're the 16th team in our power rankings, so right in the middle, and I think that's almost a fair assessment still, because they can beat anyone and they can lose to anyone. But regardless of that, if you're neutral or you like watching other teams other than your own play, always stick on the Ottawa Senators, because they do not play a boring game. Albeit they did beat the Penguins 4-0, they got a shutout there, so Might not be the best game to watch as a neutral potentially, but then they beat the Blackhawks 6-4. They beat the Bruins 6-2. Lost 3-2 in overtime to the Sabres, and then lost 7-5 to the Maple Leafs. So they love scoring goals and they love conceding goals. That does lead us on to obviously the goaltending. Merrill has been fairly poor, and Ullmark has, though had a shutout against the Penguins, has been struggling a bit as of late. And the news coming out sort of overnight tonight was that Ullmark stepping away from the team for now indefinitely for a personal absence. Now, I'm certainly not going to speculate what that is or what that's about, but what I want to do is wish Linus Ullmark, from the penalty box perspective, best wishes, whatever it is that's going on. I hope everything goes okay, and obviously personal life always comes before hockey and fans of hockey, so come back when you're ready. We're all rooting for you. But yeah, the Ottawa Senators has got plenty of players that's at a point per game. Giroux with 2 goals, 6 assists. Stutzler 4 goals, 3 assists. Zetterlund 3 goals, 4 assists. Can go on and on and on and on. Plenty of points in this team. Always worth picking up their players in fantasy if you haven't already. But Stutzler's still leading the team with 40 points in 37 games. Batherson with 37 points in 34 games. So going strong there. And they've got 3 games coming up at home. The Blue Jackets, Capitals, and then the Jets. So, though they're in 6th place at the minute, they're not far off from playoff places, wildcard spots, and I won't be surprised to see them in the mix at the end of the year. Whether they're good enough to go any further than wildcard rounds, etc., I'm not exactly sure, but we'll see. We will see. So then we go into the 7th place team, and probably the team with the saddest holiday period, the Boston Bruins. They dropped 3 spots. They're on 41 points, so still within that mix, on a -7. The record of 20, 18 and 1. They are our 12th power ranked team, but they had a 6-game schedule over the holiday period, and they only won 1. And that was the very first one back on the 16th of December. They beat the Mammoth 4-1 at home. But since then, they've lost to the Oilers 3-1, lost a shootout against the Canucks 5-4, the Senators 6-2, the Canadiens 6-2, and then the Sabres 4-1. They don't have a player at a point per game over those 6 games, so Geeky does have, and Pasternak, as you'd expect, come in at 5 points each. So 3 goals, 2 assists for Geeky, and 2 goals, 3 assists for Pasternak. And partially what it comes down to is inconsistent play between the pipes. Jeremy Swayman, obviously we know Korpisalo isn't that great a goaltender these days, but Jeremy Swayman has his great days, but also has his poor days. I think he's had more poor days these past few weeks, but they're another team that travel away to the west, all in Canada. They play the Flames, the Oilers and the Canucks, all away from home over the New Year period. Still be hoping for a bit of a turnaround, especially against the Flames and Canucks, to really get back in the game. But it's anyone's division really. Like, they're all so close at the bottom here. But then that leads us into, and I can't believe it again, we're talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs last in this rundown. They are down 1 spot. They're on 40 points, 17 wins, 15 losses in regulation, and 6 overtime losses on a -5. They've also had a busy schedule. They played 7 games. With them 7 games, you would have thought they made a push and got up the division rather than down, but here we are. They started off with a 3-2 win against the Blackhawks, then lost 3 on the bounce on the road to the Capitals 4-0, the Predators 5-3, and the Stars 5-1. Rough stretch of games. They did come back with a vengeance and beat the Penguins 6-3 and Senators 7-5 in that crazy game, but then lost last night in overtime to the Red Wings. For me, the biggest thing with the Maple Leafs is the lack of presence through their captain, Austin Matthews. And as I picked him really high up in the first round of the fantasy team draft, I really thought I was going to be onto a winner. Lo and behold, he's not really performing on the ice, and he seems to be absent in terms of off the ice as well. John Tavares, for me, is the captain of this team, and he's performing like one. Matthews sat on 27 points in 33 games, which is no great shakes for a player of sort of normal NHL aptitude, but for Austin Matthews, it should be better than that, I would say. Nylander's got 7 points in 6 games this week, 3 goals and 4 assists. They're still without Anthony Stolarz in net, so they got Wall back, who is performing as an NHL starter for the most part. That doesn't help when you're still conceding too many goals. Hildeby is still supporting him, coming through decent stats-wise this week, but again, they're just not getting the results. A lot like the Maple Leafs, the Devils and the Jets, who they play up with next, they're all teams who should be doing better, but there's just simply not. So it'll be interesting to see how those 3 teams do in sort of these couple of games and see where that puts them. And then they finished a 3-game week against the Islanders away from home on Long Island. So we'll see where they go, the Maple Leafs. But really, this organisation, it's rife. It's the home of hockey per se. There's a lot of scrutiny in that market, and if they're at the bottom of this division much longer, I think there's going to be drastic changes. Pitchforks, flames, all sorts. Like this, people aren't going to be happy. Thankfully, I'm not a Maple Leafs fan, so I don't have to go through all of that. But with that in mind, we'll then sort of recap now sort of the top point scorers of the week and of the season so far. So we've alluded to it earlier on in this podcast. Connor McDavid's leading this week with 16 points. Draisaitl coming second in 13. With Celebrini, Tolvanen and Rantanen coming in at 10 points. McDavid and Matt Boldy of my Wild coming in with 6 goals in the games this past week and a bit. So they're leading out front in that respect. And in terms of the penalty box perspective award in penalty minutes, you expect to see Zador up there with 31 minutes, but in 2 games, Scott Sabourin of the Tampa Bay Lightning also has 31 minutes of penalty minutes, which, as a fourth liner across 2 games, you wouldn't expect to see 30 minutes on the ice between those 2 games. But lo and behold, he spent that amount of time in the box watching a game from the front row. So, yeah. Obviously, we've touched on him and his fight with Zakai from the Canadiens. So, yeah, tough one for Sabourin, really. But then as we go on to the season total so far, we've got a new leader in the clubhouse. It's Connor McDavid with 68 points on the year, MacKinnon on 64 and Celebrini 57. McKinnon's still up front goal scoring wise, 31 goals out of his 64 points are coming goals. Geeky with 25, then Boldy and McDavid with 24 apiece. There has been a big jump out the lead in terms of penalty minutes. And that is Nikita Zadorov with 97 minutes so far in the season, ahead of Logan Stanley with 76 minutes. So I think this is going to be Zadorov's to lose now, if that's something he wants to go for. So that's the recap of this week the past couple of weeks in the NHL. Obviously, we had a bit of a busy time over Christmas, seeing family and friends and working, unfortunately. So I'm looking forward personally, I know Matt is too, to being able to dig deep and keep going into 2026 with watching more and more NHL hockey and bringing that to you all you listeners. But no, as we sort of close the curtain on 2025 for this podcast, I want to issue a personal thanks to everyone who's listened. This is no doubt been sort of a passion project for both me and Matt coming forward, but as we've found that we've been really enjoying it and we want to keep pushing and take this podcast to the next level, we have got big plans for 2026. We're working out all of those in the background, and we will reveal our changes to you, or you'll quite often see or hear the changes for yourselves. But we want to thank you, loyal listeners who are listening right now as we continue to push and develop. Obviously, anything that you can do, leaving comments, liking, subscribing, sharing it with your friends and family on all of our social medias, that'd be Absolutely, really appreciated. And if you've got any feedback for us, you know where to reach us at this point. Now, I know Matt normally does these lovely outros, and it's all ingrained in his memory now, and that is why he's my good friend. That's what's ingrained in my memory, not the outro. So, excuse the little bit of rambleness with this, but we'll see you soon with a brand new podcast, and thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.